me, but I am young, but I got started in business in 2017.
Tell me a little bit about that. So you started basically in high school.
Yeah, well, funny enough that we're doing a show for podcasts, right? Like RSS, like that's awesome. One of my first ever ventures was having a podcast. And I was this kid, I was going through some issues at home. I don't come from money. I came from a single parent household. I watched my mom work really obnoxious shifts at Taco Bell. And, she would come home at night. And I mean, it was great getting free Taco Bell at the end of the day, but it's like I can barely see her. And so I was raised by my grandmother a lot in my early years. And, she later on got remarried and whenever you bring in another adult, another father figure, that can oftentimes lead to animosity, chaos, hard feelings, tension, stress, etc. And that's exactly what happened with me. And, amidst those troubled times, I fell in love with the idea of entrepreneurship, like finding a business, because up until that point, I was a great student, straight A's. I had one C in my life. And the moment I got that report card that said C plus or C minus, it was like end of the world. I had to go to school to get a tutor. Like I had to stay after. And I never got a C in my life again. But at the end of the day, my mom said, go to school to get good grades, to get a scholarship. And I was one SAT test away from that. But I saw her not using her own degree because she later on got her master's in business. And I'm like, you're not even using it. So, and I love her to death. I'm not speaking down about her, but I saw that combined with these young 20, 22-year-old kids making $10,000 a month, traveling, doing things that nobody in my life and my family had ever done before. And I saw that as a way to, jump in and do something different, do something new. And so my senior year of high school, I took some of those entrepreneurial tendencies that I had. I was a kid who had the idea of running my own pin company. I had a lawn business, a couple of different things when I was younger. And it wasn't until 2017 when I finally was able to define what exactly I was and what exactly I did.
Well, Aaliyah said it best, age ain't nothing but a number.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but I actually like the fact that you started in high school because it definitely speaks to the way that things are now, that it's not just about you go to school and then you go to school again and then you get a job and you stay there for, until you get the gold watch. It's very much a gig economy. It's very much the entrepreneurs are the ones that are basically paving the way right now. And so I think it's perfect that you started that way. So now you mentioned that one of your first ventures was actually podcasting, and you podcast now. So why did you start your podcast, and how do you promote it?
My first ever podcast was called The Isaac Mashman Show, and I scrubbed the internet clean of it. You can only find one episode of it right now, and that was when I re-released it with my current podcast, Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman. But I launched it. I don't even know quite why I launched it. That was during the period where I was finding these other entrepreneurs who had strong personal brands and starting to reverse engineer what they did. Some of the people that I've started following, they got on Twitter first. So I started a Twitter account. I started building Twitter. I saw that they had a podcast. I'm like, well, they did it, so why can't I do it? And now the production sucked. It was a very rocky beginning, but I would be in computer class editing my audios on a free Audacity download. And to this day, I still use Audacity because why not? Or I have my head of audio edit the episodes. But it started out sharing it with my friends at school. I mean, I remember getting screenshots from my friends at the time listening to my podcast in the car. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. And then from there, I kind of latched onto that emotional feeling of, okay, I'm doing something and other people are engaging with it. This is kind of cool. Is this scalable? And then from there, that's when I started to build out my personal brand online outside of just my friend group and, started to connect on LinkedIn with more people and Twitter and build out my audience and continue that content creation.
So the podcast that you have now, did that start before or after you began the branding company?
So Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman actually was launched in 2019, an entire year almost before I launched Mashman Ventures, and I've incorporated that. Now, Mashman Ventures is a public relations firm, but it had a couple different iterations. Actually, prior to getting incorporated, it went from being Mashman Media, and then I was like Mashman Coaching, and I was like Mashman Ventures, because I wanted to do something. I was going through this evolutionary process of, I want to do something that is scalable and also something that has not been done before or isn't easily duplicatable. Because I see a lot of these other entrepreneurs that focus on a couple of different services, a couple of different business models. And I'm like, I don't want to put myself in a box. I don't want to put myself in the only field of media. I don't want to put myself only as a coach because I'm not a coach. And so actually, if you go to my Twitter account for Mashman Ventures, you'll see that it was launched and created in 2018, way before, 2 years before my company, because the handle at the time was at Mashman Media. And so it's been a really, really fun process. I know it sounds a little bit all over the place, but I think that sometimes when you're doing something that's never been done before and you don't have that firm path, that firm direction, that blueprint, so to speak, or that mentorship, it is going to be chaotic. And then from there, that chaos is going to bring about something that's great. And I think that's what happened over the past couple of years.